also all of the players' testicles hang out while they play it.
Yeah, so ESPN has said that esports aren't sports, which I think a lot of people knew, and a lot of people are also upset about.
So, well, a few things, right? Like the CEO said it. The CEO of ESPN.
And his opinion matters.
He's an old
I
man.
suppose.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like the real headline here is
His opinion does matter. Yeah.
CEO of ESPN is old. That's the subtext here. Like that's what it means.
Yeah, but it is a big deal in the sense that, everyone, the Dota and eSports were on the front page of the New York Times that Sunday. The Sunday we were at PAX, actually, I think.
Yeah.
And, everyone I think was thinking, okay, and this year it was on the front page of the New York Times. There's a $10 million tournament. Like, there's this obvious growth that esports is experiencing into a new stage of legitimacy. And I think everyone is kind of expecting, okay, maybe next year you see, different television, companies kind of starting to broadcast these tournaments.
You're
or whatever.
saying the international moves up from ESPN 5 to ESPN 1 or whatever the hell they're on.
Right, exactly. It's just started, it's going to be treated like something legitimate.
The weird thing about the quote, though, if you read it, is I don't necessarily disagree with anything he says. I think it's weird that he felt like he had to say it because the question he was being asked was about the Twitch acquisition. But what he's saying is that it's a competition, like chess. And I think that I don't correlate legitimacy with whether or not something's a sport.
Yeah.
That doesn't. I don't.
A sport. It's kind of implied that it's a physical sport, right? So. I don't see the problem with it being labeled a competition instead of a sport. Was he talking about that in the context of them never ever broadcasting any tournaments or anything on ESPN?
Well, they did broadcast the international this year, right?
Yeah,
But it was not on the main channel.
Then you have to approach this conversation from the perspective of why do people care so much? Why are people so hurt when somebody
gives a shit what some old dude thinks about esports?
Exactly. It's like gamers are constantly trying to validate their habits.
Yeah. And they have been
from outside people who don't enjoy or even understand their habits.
Right, and why should we even care what he thinks? But the fact that, but I also get where a lot of people are coming from. I personally, I just kind of laughed at his quote.
Right.
But I get where people are coming from because, there's people that are trying to make this a career and there isn't enough money in the industry yet for there to be if you're the number of pro players of games that are making a living wage off of playing a game they're really good at is still really small.
Right.
Whereas if you play football and you're good and you can get into the pro scene, then you can do that for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Whereas currently you can get into the pro scene and still be paying, still be losing money by trying to get to tournaments and stuff like that. That's still happening in the pro scene right now. So this legitimacy is important for these people, these kids' careers.
Yeah,
in the
but
sport,
I don't think a distinction of label would help that. I mean, football is football players are paid so much money because a spectator is paid an exorbitant amount of money to go see the games, and people put money into their products and their merchandise.
Right.
Nobody's you go to you go to some gaming tournaments, they're usually free, right? You don't have to pay to get in.
No, a lot of them you do have to pay.
But you're right though that they're broadcast for free.
Yeah,
they are broadcasted for free, and that's where most of the money is. I don't think any of these tournaments are really making money off of the tickets sold at the event. I think that just maybe covers some of the expenses of the event.
So how do they get those $10 million payouts? Is it paid for by the game that they're playing?
The way it works for Dota is crazy.
It's the community put up all of the 10 million except for maybe the initial 2 million. I think Valve put up 2 million for the prize pool, and then for 4 months or maybe more leading up to the actual big final event, you could, as someone who just plays the game Dota, you could spend $10 to get in-game rewards and stuff like that. But all the money went to the prize pool. Which is so nuts. So literally, the community, put up $8 million basically.
It's so cool because it's such a complete
the prize pool.
it's a total reinvention of the sporting event model completely. It's free to watch. People donate for it. It's almost like, weirdly, it's almost like looking at Dota as a free-to-play game and how different that is from the traditional model of like competitive games that like you buy normally. They're reinventing the wheel in terms of how you enjoy these events. Like, but it's just funny. Like I don't think it's worth getting mad at this old dude for being an old dude. I think all you can really do is sit back and laugh and be like, dog, this shit is like huge. It's like borderline bigger than your thing.
Yeah.
In like a few years, you were 100% going to regret not getting on the esports bandwagon, and you're going to deserve to not be a part of it. Like,
yeah, I mean, that's where I'm kind of go back and forth. Like, I would love for it to be perceived as a sport because I would like to see it, you know, respected, like on par with other traditional sports.
Right.
Also, I feel like if a sport was invented today, like someone went out and said, okay, we're gonna get a committee of people together and we're gonna invent a new sport.
Boo ball.
And it's
What's
like
it called?
It would
Boo ball.
Boo ball. That sport,
right off the bat, I think, like meeting number one, we need to find a new name for Boo Ball.
No, I think it's a great name.
Okay.
Because people will accidentally type it in when they're Googling.
I think
blue
we should.
balls.
I think we should entertain other options. But
But she's right because
You
it'll
guys are
also
haters?
it'll autocomplete when you type in boob, which that's a ton of traffic.
No, not boob ball. Boo ball.
I know, but it's all one word. B-O-O-B-A-L.
But still-
Oh, you're right.
It's smart.
Yeah.
it is
Smarter than you even
I'm
knew.
smarter than I initially thought.
Not to get off track, but
Sorry to interrupt. You were saying.
Well, no. I would say like if a sport was made today, it would be a non-physical sport. I feel like it would have to be. It would have to be a video game. Like
That, I mean-
I cannot even imagine a brand new physical sport ever being invented. And can you imagine like humanity continuing and like literally we only play the sports that were invented like whatever year, how many years
Hundreds
ago?
of years ago.
well, there's an enormous aesthetic
Forever?
difference between what most MOBAs look like and what sports looks like, right?
Right.
Like I think if an average person tuned in to the International and saw like these fantasy creatures shooting fireballs at each other, like that has a pretty honestly limited appeal, I think, to some people. Like that.
Totally, but if you think about how like sports became popular and the way they became something that people want to watch is they started out as like
Because they
games.
didn't have computers.
They didn't have computers. They started out as games that people just played, you know, for fun and like with the other people, whether maybe it was at school or whatever. And then enough people were familiar with the game that they actually enjoyed watching it and watching other people who were better at them do it.
Right.
And then it grew into a whole thing that's now a pastime for the country.
It's a very primitive thing. Like, look at like gladiator stuff,
Yeah.
you know? Like, that's just what people did back then. They were like, yeah, let's just beat each other up. And then it seems almost unusual to see that kind of thing still continue today. I mean, look at football. Like, there's all these rules now and laws about concussions with players. Like, it's insanely dangerous to do that.
People are fucking dying.
Nobody's
like,
gonna
straight
die
up.
in a Dota tournament, you know? Unless
oh my
they
God,
have been
but
up for
but that's the
10
problem,
days
isn't
straight.
it?
Right. That's the thing is like the immediate.
That's why it's not sport.
The immediacy of watching dudes run into each other is never going to get boring.
Yeah.
But like watching dudes click on shit.
Oh, yeah.
It's a little. It doesn't read as well. Like,
Yeah.
and it's not just because like the physical violence thing. I think like watching a screen capture of somebody playing a MOBA isn't. It's when I'm watching two people play tennis, I'm like, it's immediately apparent what's going on.
Yeah,
here.
even if you don't understand the rules, you can still follow along.
But with Dota, that's not necessarily true. Although then again, though, football
I don't
doesn't
know.
make a ton of sense either.
I
right
feel
off
like
the bat.
that's what I think is changing. Honestly, I feel like if you grow up playing games, you understand the language and how mechanics of games work, and when you if you just start watching a competitive game, like you can really quickly figure out roughly what's happening.
Yeah, but to get the full experience of a tournament like that, you have to be familiar with the subtle nuances of the game, you know? Because people will cheer at things and I'll be like, what just happened, you know?
But I remember being a little kid and like my dad doing that with football, and me having no idea with like what, I don't know, like when someone gets a first down. I remember being confused. I'm like, why do they have?
Still don't know
like,
about
why
it.
do they have a first down now? What did they do? My dad's like, well, they crossed the yellow line. I'm like, well, but the yellow line is now in front of them.
Yeah.
And then he's like, yeah, well, they move the yellow line every time. That was like, I was young, but that was a very confusing concept when I was a little kid. So I think we take it for granted how much we know.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Like football is complicated, but football doesn't have like 100 different characters who all have different spells. And
totally.
Like,
completely agree.
It's another level.
Well, and I think that is what's going to change in the next few years. I feel like
you're saying football will have 100 different characters who can shoot fireballs and lightning and shit.
Magic.
Yes,
that's what's going to change.
That's what's going to happen. We have the
one
technology.
thing that's missing from football.
I've been saying that for years.
They're going to play with tasers.
I think NFL Blitz didn't go far enough. I'll say it.
I actually completely agree with you on that one.
They need to light all the players on fire.
They need to give the NFL Blitz license to Volition. That's what needs to happen.
Yes.
My God.
Saints Row Football would be fucking game of the year.
Holy crap.
2016. Catch it.
God damn it, that's brilliant.
I want that.
That it is just completely and utterly gorgeous. I think if you've seen footage of this game, you know that it's very, very sparse, very quiet, really great depth of field. But this is the first time I've ever gotten to see what it's like to actually play it. And it's hard not to be reductive and make the obvious Dark Souls comparison, but there is obviously a little bit of that there. You start out with a sword and